Columbus is the second largest city in the U.S. without intercity rail travel. That could be changing in the near future. Hey, what's up everyone? Andy Howell, your favorite local realtor right here in Columbus, Ohio. I love making videos all about Columbus, what it's like to live here, the cool things we have happening here. So if you're someone who's interested in moving to, maybe you're moving away from, or maybe just within Columbus, reach down, hit that subscribe button. Better yet, my contact information is below. Give me a call. I would love to hear from you and help you make Columbus your home. So this summer, as a result of many of you asking for videos about public transportation, we started a whole public transportation video series. The first one was an overview. In today's video though, we are focused on Amtrak, what renewed service would mean for Columbus. And you might be scratching your head thinking, geez, public transportation, like intercity rail travel, do we really need this? Why now? Why now in Ohio? For those of you that don't know, our former governor, John Kasich, famously, maybe infamously, turned down $400 million of federal funding to keep passenger rail service going on in Ohio. So fast forward today, why does this matter today? Why is this a big item? Well, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Ohio State, and the Columbus Dispatch put out a survey asking people, hey, what's most important to you with public transportation? Over 90% of the respondents, their number one priority was intercity rail travel, Amtrak service. So couple that with the 2022 infrastructure bill that earmarked over $60 billion to revitalize passenger rail here in the United States. Literally, there's never been more support, more tailwind, more federal funding for projects like this. So that is why this is happening right now. If you've watched this channel for any amount of time, I'm gonna sound like a broken record to you guys here, but if you're new to this channel, you should know that over the last 10 years, Columbus has welcomed about 250,000 additional residents, people moving to Central Ohio. However, over the next 25 years, we can expect another 800,000 people. That is population roughly the size of San Francisco moving here. Public transportation is already a big deal right now, but every decision we make today about public transportation is just going to have reverberations for generations to come. I'm talking reverberations in things like housing, like just getting around the area, and just what you see when you get around the area. We don't need a lot of, or at least I don't want to see a lot more suburban sprawl. Now, it used to be a lot easier to take Amtrak from Columbus right here. Actually, these train tracks right behind me were in use by Amtrak. Union Station was right here under the convention center until the 70s, and it was finally demolished in 1979. Today, you still can use Amtrak service here from Columbus, but it is wonky to say the least. You're gonna find yourself driving either up to Cleveland or down to Cincinnati, or maybe even depending on where you're living in the state, maybe Indianapolis is closer, maybe Pittsburgh is closer. So it's difficult to ride. And I actually have a personal story. Way back when I was in 1999, freshman spring break, my buddies and I decided we were gonna go to the Big Apple for our spring break. You know, being from a small town, Ohio, I wasn't super comfortable with driving a car into New York City, but Amtrak was a great option. It was cheap. We didn't have to drive much outside of driving up to Cleveland, but it was extremely slow to get out there. It took about 13 hours, which is slower than by car. There were a ton of stops, and it just overall wasn't a great experience other than not having to drive. This new vision has to be different than that, right? Well, so what is the current vision of what Amtrak could be? Well, ironically, the new station, plans for the new station would be right here, using these same tracks that were used 4 decades ago that are still used by freight trains. And there would be a whole station built out here. The renderings and the inspiration that has been from other stations that have been drawn, places like Penn Station in New York City. You've got the King's Crossing in London, the Stuttgart, Germany station. I mean, these are really iconic looking designs, and just thinking about something like this being in Columbus, being in Ohio, just makes me feel like the city's grown up right before my eyes. I love it. We really could use this. The Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission I mentioned earlier, they have earmarked about $30 billion worth of projects over the next 30 years that they're looking to take on: rail, pedestrian, and then just regular public transit around the city. This Amtrak push is one of those things that they are looking to implement. So what routes, what would that look like initially? Well, there are two routes they're looking to, they're studying and made applications for. The first is what they call the 3 C's and the D. That would connect Cleveland to Columbus, jog over to Dayton, and then down to Cincinnati. The second route would be actually Pittsburgh, Columbus, Chicago, with a few intermediate stops along the way. Initially, there aren't going to be that many stops. It's just going to be a few, at least until the project gets its sea legs, gets some ground underneath of it, and then more stops will be added along the way. So when is all this going to happen? Current plans are that this would be implemented by 2030, so 6 short years. I understand this to be a 3-phase process. The first phase was just studying what it would take to implement something like this, and then just study, hey, are people even going to use this? That was a resounding yes. So I believe we're on to the second phase, which really takes a deep dive into what engineering work would need to be done, what environmental work would need to be done, and then requires a 10% state match. I believe we're there. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe we're there. And then phase 3 would be the actual construction of the cars and the stations, and maybe revitalizing some of this rail service. So all that to be done in the next 6 years. Coming from a construction background, like, that seems like a really ambitious timeline, but there are bigger movers and shakers than me, so I'm sure they'll get it done if that's the will of us Ohioans. So let's chat about, pros and cons to everything, right? Let's start with the pros. Well, here in Central Ohio, you've heard me mention it, all our growth we've had, all the anticipated growth we're looking to have over the next 25 years. We are already short labor right here. That is going to continue to be an issue. Getting passenger rail service here through Columbus would allow workers from farther flung areas to actually commute into Columbus and work here. We're short on houses, so we truly do need that. Secondly, that commute time, even if you're coming from a little further away, that is really quality commute time on a train, different than, a car, because you can work on the computer, you can read a book, you don't have to drive, you don't need to pay attention. So that is really valuable commute time. Third reason why it would be really great is they are looking to get the average speeds of the trains up to 80 to 110 miles per hour, and modeling it off the intercity passenger rail like they have up in Michigan. So that would essentially make the travel from Cleveland down to Cincinnati in under 4 hours on par with the car, which is, I think, something we need to make this all work. So why would this be bad? Well, I think net, this is going to be a big win for most people, not for everybody. There are going to be those folks that are maybe displaced because their one small town has a train station in it, and it's not a small town anymore. There's probably going to be some sort of eminent domain issues. There's probably going to be a healthy amount of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Secondly, I think this is the biggest con potentially. Amtrak doesn't own any of the rails, or not many of the infrastructure, the railroad infrastructure around the country, and that's the case in Ohio too. My concern is with the quality of the tracks. I mean, freight trains are moving a heck of a lot slower than these Amtrak trains are going to move. And jog your memory here a little bit, earlier this year we had the biggest environmental disaster, probably one of the biggest in the United States history, up in Northeast Ohio, East Palestine. Norfolk Southern train derailed, spilled a ton of vinyl chloride in the area. It was burned off and horrible. I don't think we know all the ramifications of that yet. But if that were a passenger rail, it would be a whole different ball game. We see the immediate results rather than an environmental disaster that could be 30 years down the line. So people got to know and trust that this rail infrastructure is going to be up to snuff and be able to handle these high speeds. So that's number 2 for me. And number 3 is, I think it's going to be hard to average the 80 to 110 miles per hour. I know that's their goal. I know it's possible, but I gotta see it, because my only experience with Amtrak was super slow, slower than a car. It just didn't go that fast. So I really want to see how they implement this all. But As I mentioned, I think this is a net benefit for Columbus. The people have spoken that we want something like this, and given that Columbus really is in competition nationally with other cities to attract businesses, economic activity, and people here. And being the largest city without intercity passenger rail, we need this. I think it would help the whole area. I think it would provide access not only to Columbus, but people in Columbus accessing other areas. And I think we need it. Let's get it coming. Great job, Mid-Ohio, MORPC. Let me know what you think of Amtrak coming to Columbus. Good idea, bad idea. Let me know what you think of the video down below. Thanks for watching so much, guys. You have a good one.